I have no items under the chairman to bring forward. Are there any updates on MAPS 3 subcommittees?
We'll have a meeting today after this, and it'll be update on Whitewater, so we'll know more then.
Okay, very good. Item 3, approval of the minutes of May 26. You may recall there was not a June meeting, so that's our last set of meetings. Any comments or questions about that? Been moved and seconded. Please record your vote. Minutes are approved. Item 4 is our consent docket. We have 2 items, the sand mining and oil reports, and then river corridor events update.
Move to approve.
Been moved and seconded. Any comments?
Could I just a quick question? Does the decrease in the sand mining revenue have to do with the fact that they can't get in or out of the location, or just?
I think we've got 2 factors working on this. Obviously, we're depleting that, which was discussed in our report. Also, May was an extremely wet month, so they probably couldn't get in. So I think both of those were factors in the sand, but it's going to be going down, I think, because of the depletion, even in good months.
We've got another item here on 5B that we'll discuss that deeper.
Where they're looking for a replacement?
Well, yeah, next couple items down, we'll get it in.
Got it.
Do I have a motion? Yes, you do. Okay. Record your vote, please. Item is approved. Item 5, primary agenda items. Item A is to receive the unaudited interim financial statements for the period of April 30th, 2015. Any comments, questions? If not, is there a motion to receive? So moved. Been moved and seconded. Record your votes, please. Item is approved. Thank you. Item B is to receive a report on the Riverfront Redevelopment Authority's estimated revenues and expenses for July 1, 2015 through June 30, 2016. Matt?
Mr. Chairman, trustees, we have a presentation for you today on the expense and revenue side of the equation for OKRA. The study was done at the request of the trustees, and I want to certainly credit David Birch and others in the Parks and Recreation staff under Mr. Cupper for putting this together for us. In general, and to touch on Ms. Salyer's question about sand mining revenue, that comes up first and foremost on the docket in this report, and the depletion is a major issue. There's a lot of coarse aggregate sand and other materials there that are available. The problem is that this particular location, where we have been mining now for a couple of decades, also was used for debris and construction rubble and demolition, burial of those kinds of things. So as a result, there's sand down there, but it's not commercially viable to get to it any longer. And so DeLisi has begun to pare back what they are doing there. They have repaired the existing equipment on site, but they do not intend to invest in new equipment on this particular sand mining site. They believe that the mine has essentially lived its useful life in terms of commercial viability. We are in touch with their folks. They are looking at other locations on the river, conducting some sand mining core samples to determine the availability of suitable quantities to be commercially viable. That's ongoing, and I think probably we will have a report for the trustees in the next month or so after they complete their work. They did have trouble getting their drill core truck in the area where it was needed to be, primarily because of wet weather, and the drill course truck was also out of state for some period. But as you can see, the average over the last 5 years has been over 100,000 in sand mining. That has always been the major source of revenue for this trust. However, if you start looking at what is being taken out now, what is actually being sold now, and you extrapolate that forward, it does make a pretty significant difference in terms of the availability of revenue from that particular revenue source. Oil and gas, as everyone knows, the price of that, both of those commodities, oil and gas, have sunk steadily over the last several years. That is a direct result of some of our revenue numbers being lower. As it turns out, we were concerned initially about the possibility of a depletion situation with oil and gas. As it turns out, after some review, it appears that the depletion is very minor. The amount of oil and gas being taken and sold is pretty consistent. It's a very slow, 1 or 2% decline, as opposed to anything precipitous. The real issue there is the cost of the commodity itself. In terms of expenses, if you see, this is a look at the 2015-16 budget that includes all of the typical items that this trust does approve every year. Given the amount of cash reserves and so forth, you come to an end of the road fairly quickly if we don't begin to replace some of those revenue streams with other sources of potential revenue. If there are questions about the way the report was calculated or any of the details surrounding that, Doug is here and can probably answer some of those questions.
Pat, what's the plan to replenish the revenue stream?
Well, Doug and I have looked at several different options for revenues. Certainly, first and foremost is getting a second sand mine up and running. That would be a significant source of revenue, and we are spending quite a bit of effort working with DeLisi to find that other location. We have the land available. It's currently under a grazing lease, so it wouldn't be a problem. So the issue there becomes, is that commercially viable? There are other revenue streams that can be captured and other ways in terms of fundraising, even events, activities, as well as some land leases down the road that could be commercially viable. So at this point, we have a number of possibilities. We have not focused on a specific plan for that, but are certainly discussing that at this point.
Pat, it looks like the only two things that the two obvious things that if we had to prioritize to go away would be the marketing and sponsorship commitments. Have we already funded those?
Well, each of these is an annual commitment. So as these commitments come up annually, the trust does have the option to approve, decline, or modify as they deem appropriate.
I think it's interesting to point out that the city's got to have just a dozen different trusts that we have, all of which have dedicated revenue sources outside of this trust. The water trust has all the water revenue that comes in from the water bills. The airport has the revenues from all the leases and landing fees and such at the airport. The zoo has admissions and dedicated sales tax. The Economic Development Trust has gold bonds and TIF revenue into it. The school trust has the sales tax and geo bonds. This trust has never had a revenue source outside of some mineral opportunities for us. And so it's always been a little bit challenging to do that because there just isn't a revenue source that's been established.
And that's the significance on the revenue side. On the expense side, over the years, this trust has borne the expense of some pretty sophisticated and costly engineering studies. One of the early studies leading to what became the original MAPS River project was funded, the engineering study was funded out of this trust and certainly not reimbursed. The study that allowed the Indian Cultural Center and Museum project to be located where it is, that required about $100,000 environmental study that was done and paid for under the supervision of this trust and was not reimbursed. So over the years, as these opportunities have presented themselves, this trust has opted to move forward and take advantage of those opportunities. But if you combine the expense of those opportunities with the relatively flat and limited revenue sources that are dedicated to this trust, it's not hard to see.
So, Mr. Chair, so where are we going? I mean, every time I see these financial statements, I see that our net position decreases each year. And if the only source is going to be possibly another Delisi situation, I mean,
Well, within the realm of what this trust has historically done in terms of revenue stream, that would be the easiest way to address it would be to find a second sand mine, and we do have an area that Delisi is exploring now. If that proves itself to be financially feasible, then certainly we proceed along those lines, and the demand for coarse aggregate materials has not at all gone down in this market. And the benefit that we have, because the property is in essence the trust estate. When the Riverfront Authority was created, the mayor and council granted the land and the minerals thereunder as a part of the trust estate. So the benefit that we have is that with the significant potential for sand revenue, in addition to the fact that we have a fairly close-in location, a lot of sand mining costs are fixed, but the real cost of sand and coarse aggregate materials is really transportation. So the advantage that we have along the river over most other sand mining operations in the area is that we are relatively closer to the need for the sand, and that presents a pretty significant advantage.
But right now it appears that we have at best around 75,000 coming in for the year, and we have 234,000 in anticipated expenditure. And I don't know how you get a handle on it other than you turn around and, I mean, I don't know how quick, if Delisi found the sand, how quick they'd be up and running and we'd start pulling the revenue back in, and to what amount. I mean, that's a huge gap in there. And I guess my concern last time about the 25,000 for the sponsorship, then you turn around and you say 25,000, but for 4 years we haven't gotten anything extra other than that out of it. So then you turn around and you start saying, how do we start doing this? Because the federal government can print money and we can't, and we shouldn't, I'm not sure, I don't know how you do it other than you really take a hard look at what the potential for revenue will be back in, and you look at where you can cut expenditures.
And I think that logically is the next step, and some of those discussions are taking place as we speak. The report that was requested is what's presented, but this report leads to many other tasks on the part of staff to bring options and information back to this body, and that's certainly what we will do.
Any other questions or comments of Pat? Is there a motion to receive this report? Been moved and seconded. Record your vote, please. Item is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Item C is report on signs related to the North Canadian River Corridor access points near Center and Northeast 10th and Northeast 36th.
Doug?
Do we have a PowerPoint for this as well? Okay. A few months ago, it was brought to y'all's attention that we were having quite a bit of vandalism and illegal activities. The original complaint came in from our leaseholder that is farming some of the river property, talking about four-wheelers and that sort of thing, driving all over his crops. And then we looked into it further. We have a lot of illegal dumping and other activities. We asked the police department to take a look at it. They came before you and made a report that they found areas of penetration where people were accessing the river. They actually found people swimming illegally in the river and things along those lines. Their report, the major's report, identified locations where he would like to have seen our signs placed along the river, approximately 24 locations along the riverbed. The trust requested that we do a financial report on that, see how much that would cost, et cetera, et cetera. Staff worked with the Public Works folks to create the template. We went to the law department and got the verbiage on the signs approved by them. It was no unauthorized motor vehicles, no camping, I think are the two primary things on there. The police department requested we put no alcohol or beer on there, but unfortunately in a park setting, the only place that's illegal to consume alcohol or beer is either on the park road or the park parking lot, but in the park itself you can consume. So it was a non-enforceable situation down in the river because it's classified as a park setting, so we couldn't add alcohol. In working with the Public Works Department, they suggested an alternative. We were concerned that if we put all of these signs in the riverbank or in the riverbed on T-posts, the next big flood we have, they'll probably disappear under the muck and debris that comes down the river. B, they will be stolen and recycled fairly easily because they can be pulled out of the ground fairly easily. Public Works came to us with a suggestion that we increase the size of the sign but reduce the numbers that are being posted. They recommended that we put them on the faces of the bridges where as you drive on the river you have to go underneath the bridges. Some of the access points are right there at the bridges, and they felt that we would better serve our needs by putting the signs. They're about 30 inches by 60 inches with 4-inch letters rather than the smaller no parking size blanks that we're recommending for in the river bed itself. And the cost for those locations was about 50% of what the cost was for the 24 individual signs placed in the riverbed. The price for the 24 signs is outlined by the police department as approximately $1,500. The price for the bridge abutment signs is around $764, and all of that is in your report. From a staff perspective, we're recommending that we attempt to do it with the bridge abutment signs, reduce our loss from that perspective because they'd be almost completely tamper-proof from that perspective, very visible, and we think the police department can still enforce the no unauthorized motor vehicles, which is the big thing. In order to swim in the river, you have to get down to the river in the first place, so they're going to be driving. So we think we can take care of that, and no camping, I think, can take care of the rest of it. But we'd be happy to answer any questions or follow the direction of the trust, whichever way you want us to go with this.
Anyone have any question or comment?
That's an expense that will be coming out of River Trust, right, if we approve that? I mean, or is it comes out of police or parks or River Trust? Or, I mean, when we're talking expenses, every dollar counts.
Trust me, we've taken that into consideration that's why we're recommending the bridge abutment scenario per se, but again, we wanted to get your input on which way you wanted us to go, and then we might be able to pursue how this might get financed once we knew which way you wanted us to go on this particular project. Obviously, if you want to make a motion to pay for it, we'd be happy to do that, and the signs could probably be put up before this weekend, but we know that we need to be cognizant of our financial circumstances. And
What's the total cost, Doug?
I'm sorry?
What's the total cost?
$764 approximately for the bridge abutments, or $1,500.
If it's standalone, okay. I'm sure we can find funds for that.
I vote for the bridge abutments. I'd make a motion that we approve the bridge abutment signs.
I think it's a good place to start. I second that.
Been moved and seconded to approve the bridge abutment signs. Any other comments? Please record your vote.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Let's see. Item D is to receive quarterly river cruise updates.
Good afternoon, Chairman,
afternoon.
trustees. I have for you a report on what we did in the quarter April, May, and June. April was a typical month, typical for most start of the season ridership numbers. May, of course, was a complete washout, literally. With the rain, out of 23 scheduled service days, we ran 4. With all the rain and debris coming down the river. Now, for June, we had a record June, almost 2,300 riders in June. Many of the service trips were at or very near capacity, 45 to 47 passengers on each one of those trips. We also had a new record for June on riders per service hour, full boats for the entire month. It was a very good month.
Jeannie, there's nothing nicer than seeing a graph go straight up.
Yeah.
It's exactly the way you want it.
Absolutely. We work for that. And one of the ways we like to make the per service hour is to make sure we're running efficiently, that we're not running hours that aren't necessary. We're only running the hours that are in demand. Cancellations, here's a bad upshoot for you here. With May, canceled trips. Like I said, we canceled the majority of our trips in May. We did manage to get 153 passengers on those 4 days with umbrellas, I'm sure. And June, we had very, very few canceled trips. April, we typically see a few just because all of the dead wood and debris that's been collecting over the winter, the spring rains come and it all washes into the river. But the Public Works Department does an outstanding job of clearing all that out for us. Consequently, June was a very good month as far as very few cancellations and a lot of riders. Charters also took a dive in May. Some of the charters that were booked in May moved into June. Unfortunately, quite a few of them were tied to anniversaries, birthdays, family celebrations, and did not move. They just chose a different venue for their party. Themed cocktail cruises. As I reported to you back in April, we eliminated a lot of the specialty cruises to cut back on our expenses and increase our revenues. We moved these specialty cruises to evening cocktail service on ferry service, and they've been very successful. They have been a big contributor to our increase in ridership. Sunset cruises, since we're only doing 2 per month instead of the typical 8, we are now sold out through the month of August. There are still seats available in September, and we still have places available for the Haunt the River in October. The Rhodes Scholars Program, we started a little bit last year. We've had a few groups come out this year. This is a great program, gets school kids out onto the river. They learned about how locks work. They've learned about river development, a little bit about the history of Oklahoma City and the wildlife that we have right here downtown on our river. It's open to school-age trips, school-age kids, scout troops, just any sort of youth organization that wants to come down and ride. And a lot of what we've seen is the kids go home, talk to mom and dad, and before you know it, we gain more riders as they get the family to come out and ride with us.
Jeannie, what does it cost? Do the kids have to pay?
No, they do not.
No? Okay.
It is free of charge.
Is it free? Oh, great.
Up here, whoops, hit the wrong button. Up here on the screen is the last half of the year for our media plan. Once again, we're trying to hit a variety of music radio stations. We've got country, Hispanic, top 40, that sort of thing. We're aggressively working on social media and web radio, and we've also been included in the CVB rack brochure. I've added this slide to tell you about our Facebook page. Just since April, we've gained 200 more followers on Facebook, which is pretty significant if you're in the Facebook community. On July 3rd, our CATPA's marketing director posted a video. It was viewed by more than 13,000 viewers, Facebook users. Postings like these, as well as updates on our Oklahoma River Cruises events, boost the interest in our service and ultimately boost our ridership. And the Facebook metrics, which are available at the back end for the owners of the page, the metrics allow us to evaluate the responses that we get to each of our postings, so we can decide which postings work and which ones don't. Finally, in case you missed it, on Saturday, July 18th, Discover Oklahoma, they had been out and recorded a video of the Oklahoma River cruises, and we were featured on their program on that day. And if you did miss it, it is shown. You can see it at discoveroklahomatv.com or on their YouTube channel or on their Facebook page. This show is also shown in Tulsa, Lawton, Wichita, Kansas, and Denison, Texas. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions on the...
Do you have a sense of whether or not people are listening to us on the radio? I mean, do you ask people routinely when they buy tickets how they heard about us?
Yes, we do. We have survey cards on board, and there's actually a contest for deckhands to turn in the most survey cards each month. And we get their goal, the HMS, their goal is to turn in 5% of their riders need to fill out a survey. They turn in something like 20%. Some of their runs, they have everybody fill out a survey, and part of that survey says, how did you hear about us? And so we can see which radio stations they've checked. We can see if they've seen us on TV on Discover Oklahoma. Sometimes it's family and friends. Sometimes it's a Google search because they're an out-of-town visitor, and they Google things to do in Oklahoma City, and we're one of the things that come up. So we track that very carefully so that we can tell where our marketing will have the most impact.
And as we're thinking about this budget situation, really honing in on where you want to spend your money is going to be important.
Yes.
Thank you.
The Discover Oklahoma show, can that be placed on our Channel 20 and run periodically?
I'll check with the PIO office and let them know.
Good.
Any other questions? Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
If there's nothing else, is there a motion to receive?
So move.
Been moved and seconded. Record your vote, please. Item is approved. Moving on to item D is adopt a resolution approving financial participation in the amount of $50,000 from the Riverfront Redevelopment Authority for sales and marketing plan for the 2015 Oklahoma River Cruises service year to be funded to Central Oklahoma Transportation and Parking Authority for that purpose. Questions, comments?
I just, when you look at this, and it's been, I guess, 7 years since we did it, I didn't know it was going to be perpetual. When it first started, as I recall, the discussion was for a year or two to kind of get it going. It's been 7 years. We're in a really tough financial situation right now, and $50,000 is a lot of money. I just don't see how we can do it. There's other options out there. There's social media. There's Discover Oklahoma. There's talking. There's ramping up a lot of other options. I don't know that at this point in time $50,000 would be prudent for this board to turn around and move forward with.
Other comments?
Do I hear 25?
The problem's still the same.
Well, but if
It's less severe.
it's less severe and it gives you some time to come up with a solution without having a terribly negative impact on the boat operations. I think we're in the process maybe of splitting some babies here, and this might be a way to...
Larry?
Can you give us some statistics about how the marketing dollars have resulted in actual fare, people riding the...
Well, I can tell you the lion's share of the $50,000 contribution pays for the marketing person with HMS Oklahoma. She's the one who makes contacts with the hoteliers to make sure that we're still getting riders out of Meridian. She's also attends CVB events. She keeps in touch with the Bricktown Association, the Chamber. She does all of the charter bookings. So when I'm thinking paring down $50,000, I'm thinking we drop the complete media plan, which would be all the radio, all the chamber advertising, and then we would have to eliminate that position.
Time out, Jeannie. This is a subsidized operation for the general fund on the other side of it. The operations of the boats is a subsidized operation from the general fund. So if, if we can get $50,000, $25,000 from the River Trust to continue part-time, I think there's probably some ways we can take a look at filling the gap.
Okay.
But we need to understand that the boats are a subsidized operation. That subsidy comes from the general fund. Associated with that is money for promotion that comes out of the River Trust to help fill that gap. And so money is fungible.
I think as we're looking at these kinds of things, maybe it makes sense to make a motion that we approve $25,000.
Motion to fund $25,000, been moved and seconded. Any other comments? Record your votes, please. Item is approved. Item F is adopt a resolution recommending the City Council designate the following dates in 2016 as free fishing days: January 2nd, February 6th, March 5th, April 2nd, May 7th, June 4th and 5th, July 2nd, August 6th, September 3rd, October 1, November 5, December the 3rd. Any comments or questions on that? And if not, is there a motion to adopt a resolution accordingly?
Move approval.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Please record your votes. Item is approved. Item G is to adopt a resolution ratifying the City Council and approving a revocable permit for Oklahoma City Boathouse Foundation for Stars and Stripes River Festival, June 27th. This is actually just bringing paperwork up to date. It's already taken place, and it was scheduled for our June meeting that we didn't have. So this is
Move approval.
been moved and seconded. Record your votes. Thank you.
It was awesome. Fabulous fireworks. Did you have lots of folks, Mike? We did. It was great. Great.
Item H, recommend the Oklahoma City Council adopt ordinance amendments relating to parks, recreation, cultural affairs, etc., amending Chapter 38 of Oklahoma City Municipal Code 2010 by amending Article 4, Division 1, Section 3885, definitions, Article 4, Division 2, Section 38122, restrictions on game fish. Sorry about this, but I think we maybe need on the record Article 5, Division 1, Section 38134, definitions, Article 5, Division 3, Part A, Section 38138, bow fishing, Section 138.186, restrictions on game fish, Article 6, Division 1, Section 38311, definitions, Article 6, Definition 3, Part A, Section 38369, archery fishing, and Section 38371, restrictions on game fish, Article 10, Division 2, Section 38723, prohibited activities, and Section 38732, fishing areas, and Article 10, Division 3, Section 38754, restrictions on game fish. That was a mouthful. Any comments?
Doug Cupper's going to explain to us exactly what that means.
Move approval.
I just want to know what the difference is between bow fishing and archery fishing.
Any other comments?
That's the reality of what we're trying to accomplish here, is because the state had different, they changed their law, so we got to change ours to mirror theirs. But, there is really no difference. It's just the way they defined it in the articles.
Got it.
Any other comments? Record your vote, please. Item is approved. Moving on to item 6A, claims.
Move approval.
Been moved and seconded. Any other comments? Please record your vote. Item is approved. Additional items. Any comments by the staff? And if not, Pat, would you highlight your Director's Development report?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Trustees, just a couple of things to bring to your attention in the Director of Development report. First and foremost is the work with DeLisi, which we've covered a little earlier. We are also working with the Oklahoma State University about the possibility of their involvement with swiftwater rescue training. working with the Boathouse Foundation on that prospect. I think that would be a real plus for our Whitewater Center, and it shows the flexibility and the breadth of uses that facility will have once it opens.
Any chance that OSU might build a boathouse to go along with that activity?
Mr. Knopf, are you? I think the official answer would be no comment. Is that?
The exposure's still good.
There are discussions taking place. We'll see. And we do have a meeting with the OU athletic director and other folks at the end of this month, so we'll see where that leads. Otherwise, if I would allow this to stand as the written report, we request it be received as submitted, subject to any questions.
I did have just one other quick question, since we're looking for revenue. Any opportunity that the Ferris wheel generates revenue for us?
Well, we don't, yes, that's a possibility. We have not discussed that with the Humphreys, but there are land-related opportunities that we will certainly begin to explore as we dig deeper into the pro forma going forward.
Okay. Do we have any idea on the timing on the Ferris wheel?
I thought we gave a revocable permit for the Ferris wheel.
We gave them a revocable, but it was temporary pending a broader land exchange.
Right.
And that broader land exchange has not certainly come forward as yet. That's something that will have to be reviewed by the Development and Water Use Committee and brought back to this trust.
Other comments, questions? Is there a motion to receive Pat's report?
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. Please record your vote. Item is approved.
Thank you.
Any comments, additional comments by any of the trustees?
I just have a question as to, I guess, from the city manager, what is the best way we should look at this? If you look at the dollars and cents, we're couldn't even complete next year, if I read this right, in terms of where our typical obligations are and all. And, there's a few things you can cut back, but some other things you can't. So do trustees get involved in this and try to turn around and figure out where to slice it and dice it or bring revenues in, or and what happens if you turn around and get to a point where you don't have the money anymore? I don't know whether the city turns around and puts extra money in it or how you go about it. I think that the trust moving forward with the river development is going to be very, very important. I mean, I trust that it is. But then you turn around and you say, with oil and gas revenues going down, with sand going down, with that, you're in a position where you sit there, and to me, it's no times like the present to try to get a handle on things.
I think this was set up as a trust, and as I mentioned earlier, all the other trusts have revenue sources and capacity to this. This trust really hasn't. There's some land that could be leased, there's potential out there. But until that's able to come to fruition, if it ever does come to fruition, I think it's going to be a challenge. I think we've only got our mineral opportunities out there at this point in time, or some potential lease potentials that are, again, have not fulfilled. And so you're going to have to either cut back on some of the expenditure sides, and whether that's the general fund picking up and I'm not offering this, the general fund picking up the marketing, on it, or the boat parade was actually a pass-through going to the foundation, and that hasn't happened over the last couple of years because of a couple of reasons. So that was the premise to start with. We put $25,000 in, and that would help stimulate other donations, and then we'd get $25,000 put into, and that worked well for a number of years. It just hasn't recently. And then we've got the director of development contract that's out there, so you've got to take a look at your options on that. The other option would be not to have a financial budget and go and turn it into an advisory commission to the council, which would be just like the Game and Fish Commission or the Parks Commission. You'd still have the authority to control the activity or make recommendations on the activity of the river, but you wouldn't be in a trust status. You would be in an advisory board status. So those would be your long-term options. You've got 3 councilmen here. If you talk to them, and they can always make a general fund allocation to it. But there's tough choices every year through the budget cycle. Something's going to have to give. It's going to be less paving or less police officers or whatever other priorities they may have.
Go find that sand.
You hate to cut back, like on the $50,000, you hate to cut back on that, you hate to cut back on the marketing and therefore maybe diminished use of the river, yet at the same time, we can't spend what we don't have. So, I don't have to tell you that.
I agree with that.
I think we're in unanimity about our assessment. Any other comments from anyone? Yes.
A month or two ago, Triad and Pat Downs came and made a presentation to the South Chamber Board on the horse riding trails, and I appreciate that. That was well received. Very good.
Okay.
Yeah. Is that an opportunity for income?
No, that's an opportunity. That would be an opportunity for expense.
Okay.
I also think Mike Knopf has a birthday coming up in the next couple of days, so happy birthday, Mike.
I'd just like to say that I don't know whether it's more appropriate that's around the horseshoe with all of us, or it's more appropriate that some trustees might volunteer to turn around and work hand in hand trying to get through it. But to me, it seems like, we do it when we work through the Crystal Lake things. We did it when we've worked through a number of things. It seems to me like the trustees need to be very involved in this if we're going to move forward, and they need to be part of the staff working with this, because, again, we don't have enough money to make it through next year, according to what it is now. And I think there's no time like the present to turn around and start studying it, because, again, it might be some revenues we haven't even looked. One time we talked about the name of the bridge. It didn't go very far. I mean, I think we sold one bridge, but there might be, and then you got the big events. Do you do a big event, but do you jeopardize something Mike's doing? So I think you got to be real careful about how we handle that, but I think we just need to be really aware of it, or else it's going to get snuck up. It's really snuck up on me on this deal. I was surprised we'd seen revenues going down, but I didn't realize it was this dire. And like I said, with some of our big commitments, and you have Doug over there, $35,000 to mow the river. I wouldn't mow the river for $35,000. I'd be charging with $7,000. You look at some of those, and the reality is that's, I think, been the same amount for as long as I remember. And so you look at some of this, and maybe you just try to get a real alignment on the financial. So I don't know whether the chairman, when he's back, maybe we could turn around and have some people that might volunteer to look at it hard and really try to get down and see if there's some unturned stones or something that we could.
You just cut your operating expenses by 17%.
Any other comments? Anybody in our audience that cares to make a comment to the trust?
Can I make a quick comment? I've had the opportunity to ride the new trail, the river trail between Meridian and Overholser a couple times in the last 3 weeks. That's a fabulous trail. It's not quite done yet, but it's a fabulous ride out there. And Crystal Lake, the portion where we go past Crystal Lake and such, it's really, really nice. But I think what's really amazed me more than anything else is the number. I've done it 2 Saturday mornings. The number of people that are on the trail. There's more people on that new section of trail than there is on the river trail. It's really, really amazing. It's again, it's not quite done, but it's really a real nice amenity, and really opening up an area that was not particularly positive. So.
Councilman Stonecipher and I had the same idea. Toll trails. Is there such a thing?
We've got to deal with put a pike pass on your bike, and yeah.
Anyone have any other comments anywhere? If not, I'll accept a motion for adjournment. Thank you.